Welcome to Raw and Refined, the Gentleman's Hour, where we're going to have engaging conversation with middle-aged black men about what's going on. We welcome you to listen, like, comment, and subscribe with the hope that we will encourage others to join us for future conversations. We always like to start off with a toast. And with that toast, it's because we're gentlemen and we like to do it raw and refined.
I'd like to welcome you all to a special episode of Raw and Refined. Today we've got Miles and Jonathan with us. Miles and Jonathan, they are Greg and John's sons, my nephews, brilliant young cats that are out in the world. And we wanted to have them come in and bring their generation's perspective. This conversation is born out of their generation's exploits right now, specifically what brought about today's conversation that we're calling Beyond the Draft, Generational Reflections on Media, Race, and Opportunity. So what brought this about was the recent NFL draft controversy involving Shedur Sanders, a Heisman Trophy finalist who was not selected in the first round or the second round. When was he? What was he in the third round?
Fifth round.
Fifth round by Cleveland. Just sounds ridiculous to even say that. So the media there were some allegations that he was being portrayed as cocky or arrogant. There were anonymous mugs out there saying stuff who didn't have the courage to put their name on it over in corners. I've heard that he's that kind of mess. So there was that part of it. So this was kind of the entry point for us for this broader discussion on media, race, and what we'll call opportunity. And so we want to dive right into that. And we brought Miles and Jonathan in with us because, we wanted to get that generational perspective on opportunity and perception. We've been at this for a while, Greg, John, and I, at this meaning life. We're all, 56, 55 years into this thing. We've seen double standards up close. We've seen stereotypes. We've got our own perspectives on this that may be somewhat aligned in some respects, though we differ quite a bit. And actually, Greg and I were differing quite a bit on this topic of Shedur Sanders earlier this week. So we're going to talk about this today. We're going to hit up Miles and Jonathan for their perspectives. But first, I'm going to go a little off script and ask Miles and Jonathan to share with us and with our listeners whatever they want to share about themselves to start this off. So, Jonathan, jump on in. Tell us something about yourself.
Well, dang, I guess you put me on the spot. In what way? Like, you gotta give me.
I don't know. Whatever you want the people to know. Our audience is made up of cats for the most part that are just like us, middle-aged black men, is our target audience. So most of the cats are going to be like us. So didn't mean to put you on the spot, just saying, what you want the peoples to know about you, other than that you're John's son. That could be enough, or that might be not enough. Cause
all right. So other than the fact that I'm John's son, I'm just a young, thriving fellow. You know what I mean? I'm very intellectual. I love sports, love rap music, hip hop music, R&B music. I feel like I'm pretty easygoing. I'm easy to get along with. So I pretty much can see everybody's perspectives. So I pretty much have a good idea of what's going on with things, or at least I like to think so. So I ain't too much to say. I'm just a pretty laid back person. Nothing too much.
He's laid back and he likes to have a conversation as well too. So I'm excited about this.
Cool. My man Miles.
Yeah, Miles Kelly, son of Greg as well, as has been stated a couple of times. I'm from Chicago. I live out in LA now. Chill dude. Like John said, went to Morehouse. Yeah, man, I love sports as well. I love really the business of sports too, a little bit more than the product on the field or on the court. I love that as well. I love watching it, but I'm really interested in like the business behind it and media. So it's a good topic for me to be on. It's kind of in my wheelhouse. Talk a little bit about it. Love all different types of music. Like to have a good time. Like to go out, party a little bit. Was at a conference yesterday where we did a lot of that. Excuse my voice if it's a little hoarse. Just love to have a good time. And I love avenues like this because I think these kind of conversations that can go and all these different places, they don't happen enough. I don't think we talk enough about crazy topics and kind of bounce ideas off each other as men in general. So I'm looking forward to it, and let's do it. Sure.
Excellent. So supposed to start off with like a brief overview of Shedur Sanders' performance and credentials.
Well, hold up, brother. We got to do our
But
toast
before,
now.
yeah,
I mean, this is
but
what we
before,
do.
yeah, my bad. You're right. Jump on off, John.
All right, brother. So we always like to start it off with the toast, just to acknowledge each other that's in the room as well. Typically, we have a specific drink that we might bring to the podcast. However, this being our first with these young men involved, we did not have a specific drink that we brought on. So we decided to just bring on what you felt was for you at this time. And for me, I just have some great, refreshing, ice cold, citric fused water. Just
I was on the edge of my
outstanding.
seat there.
Yeah, he made it sound like he was some special imported something from the deepest corner of the planet.
That's right. That's right. So what you got? What you got, GK? What you got over there?
Well, for me, so I don't drink coffee a lot, but when I do, I have Phil's coffee. So Phil's is this sort of San Francisco-based outfit. We have one here not too far from me in Hyde Park, and they have this thing called Filtered Soul, and it's really, really good. So that's what I'm having, what's left from my Filtered Soul purchase a little while ago.
Soul like SOUL, like, or soul like the sole of your shoe.
SOUL.
Outstanding. What you got over there, Rick? Tell us about your beverage.
Today I'm doing my standard, what I call my homemade Gatorade with water, lemon juice, a little salt, and a little stevia extract in there. So I drink about 80 ounces of that a day, than just regular water than that. So that's what I got. I do basically a few Yetis of this a day.
All right, good deal. Jonathan, what you got going on over there?
I mean, well, so what I was told was that y'all had drinks. So
We usually
me
do.
being the trooper that I am, I made me a drink. So I mean, I just got a little. It's a little mango whiskey sour.
Okay.
My man.
Okay. Something
Nice.
to sip on.
Okay, that's all. Hey, you ain't nothing wrong with it. And as Rick had mentioned before we started, if things get really comfortable up in here, we might add a little second toast to this thing. So
Right.
we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
I can't leave my nephew out here by himself.
Right. I was like,
So I'm gonna have to go ahead and pour mine now.
You gonna get yours now, Miles?
and nephew,
Miles,
y'all
what
don't
you got?
know.
So yeah, no, I had no idea about it. I would have did the same thing Jonathan did, and I would have got me a little something, a little Mezcal or something like that. But I am not in my normal residence. I'm at my mother's house, so I'm drinking what she's drinking, and she has a strawberry sparkling water. So,
Okay, all right.
Hey, if we do get a drink, I'll try and scour see what she got. But for now, I got the sparkling water.
Okay. Good
Well, nephew,
deal.
I got your back. I can't have you out here by yourself, so I went on ahead
I appreciate
and
it.
poured me up a little. I got this Bardstown right here, Origin Series. It's really nice. Nice bourbon.
Okay.
So I'm rolling with you. And backstory here: your old man and your uncle over there called me out during one of our previous episodes because what were we doing? We were doing champagnes, right, or something of that sort. So I had my Prosecco in my Yeti. So they they
Like,
gave
come
me a
on now.
hard time. So I'm gonna have to switch off my background for just a second here. I was gonna show you now, of course. When I say that, then it wants to act janky. So I don't know if you can see my glass, but this is a very nice crystal with the words Central Intelligence Agency across there.
Real nice.
These were a gift. Okay.
Much better.
All right, there you
Real
go.
nice.
Much better.
So I'm going to start off with just to give you a little something about Shedur Sanders. We go back to 2022 season when he was at Jackson State. 13 games, 70% completion percentage, 700 passing yards, 40 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. At the Offensive Player of the Year. Deacon Jones Trophy as a top HBCU player, 2023 season in Colorado, 11 games, completion percentage 69%, passing yards 3,200, touchdowns 27, 3 interceptions, passer rating 151.7, 4 rushing touchdowns. He set the Colorado single game record, 500 passing yards. 2024, again, 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, so not as good. 168.2 passer rating, completion percentage 74%, Heisman Trophy finalist, all of a sudden 5th round.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the criticisms that he faced was that he was cocky, he was too arrogant. Some of the other criticisms were related to the combine and his performance or lack of performance in certain areas. Decisions around whether or not he decided to interview with certain people came out. Then there was this other whole backstory of his father and his input, his advice, or decisions that were made that his father may have contributed to, and how all of this went down. But the bottom line was he wasn't a 5th round pick. He was one of 4 cats that was up there in that Heisman photo, right? And somehow he went in the 5th round, and I thought BS. But now I'm gonna hand the mic over to Greg.
So this was one of the things Rich and I had some disagreement about. And the funny part is the disagreement was he thought he should be a first rounder. I was not convinced that he should be a first rounder. In fact, I argued that he'd be lucky to be a second rounder. And it isn't simply because of the raw numbers. I think his numbers speak for themselves. I think as a Big 12 quarterback, he had a pretty good year given the competition and his assessment of his ability based upon his competition. Being a Big 10 guy, I kind of look a little sideways at the Big 12 these days, given like the real dissolution in the quality of play in that league. But having said that, he should not have been a 5th round pick. 5th round seemed a bit ridiculous. But he's a reflection of some historical trends that we've seen over the years about Black athletes and Black males in particular. And despite the fact that you might have the numbers and you might be competitive and you're a little confident, you somehow get bypassed. And so there are a number of historical examples. You can go back to boxing, right? We can go back to Jack Johnson and the perception that he was just so arrogant, even while he was beating everybody up. It was what he was doing, of course, off of the mat that really got his attention, including being with white women. But there's also this example of people like Johnny Manziel, who got drafted, had some really crazy numbers, but he still got drafted fairly early on. And so there's this question with Shedur, whether or not he was treated differently because of his arrogance. And there are white counterparts like Johnny Football. He even had a name for him, right? Johnny Football. And our other guy, Baker Mayfield. So many examples of really fairly arrogant white quarterbacks who were not just Heisman Trophy winners but also got drafted fairly early on in the draft, but were celebrated for being sort of edgy and cocky and all of that stuff. So the argument against Shedur is that his cockiness worked against him. And so I think there's a lot of basis for that, but I'm sure we'll get a lot of justification for that, but we'll get more into that in the future, a part of this conversation. But it's clear that arrogance, cockiness hasn't stopped other quarterbacks and other athletes in sports from getting their shine. But in this case, and in the case of other Black athletes, there seems to be a double standard when it comes to just pure confidence.
And we'll talk a little more too, but this also, let's just stress that this doesn't take away from Cam Ward being selected as the first pick of the draft, being a quarterback himself as well. His stats and stuff speak well to what he was able to achieve during his year as well. But it did highlight some things as well, given that there was conversation about his presence versus how Shedur presented himself, and why does that factor in as relates to your ability. And I think that's where we'll talk more about it and definitely stress on the conversation as it relates to the confidence versus arrogance. I think
Yeah.
that's part of the perception that's out there as well. Can a black man be confident and not be arrogant? And this is something I'm sure we'll touch on during the conversation today as well.
I actually think that's why I argued that Shedur wasn't passed over in the first round or second round for that matter because of his confidence. I'm like, have you seen Cam? Like, I mean,
Exactly.
I mean, he's
Exactly.
not lacking in confidence.
Right.
Yet he was the first pick in the draft. So anyway, that's a whole longer part of the combo.
Yeah, I'm trying to be cool. I'm trying not to just, it's all crap as far as I'm concerned. I can talk about some of this other stuff, and I think that there are levels of it, but it's just some crap. But Jonathan, I want to know how you feel about this, and then I'm going to ask you the question of have you ever personally felt like you had to overperform or be perfect to be taken seriously in school or at work? Did you ever feel this double standard?
I mean, so for the first part, I mean, my feelings on Shador going 5th round, I do feel like it was a little dragged out or exaggerated. In a sense, he definitely shouldn't have went in the 5th, for sure. I definitely think he was a 3rd or a 4th, though. I don't think he was a 1st or 2nd by any means, especially with him going to Colorado. And then just me personally, the Big 12 is just not that competitive compared to the SEC or ACC and like where the other respective quarterbacks may have came out of. So I feel like honestly, the 5th round really wasn't a bad pick. Honestly, for where he went and what he gave in his college career. I mean, he went to Jackson State and he only played 2 seasons at Colorado, and the first season technically wasn't the greatest. You know what I mean? So it's just, I really do think it was realistic. I really don't, I do think it was, I feel like it was kind of played out because of who he is, because of the clout that he's brought around his name, you know what I mean? And more power to him, you know what I mean? I love the ride and everything, but I do think stuff is still realistic in NFL. You got people who are putting in more work, quarterbacks who went to harder schools, you know what I mean? Who put in work from being maybe what you would say, like a 3rd string quarterback or whatever, and he worked up to a 1st string quarterback at Alabama, got it kind of on the silver platter. You know what I mean? This is kind of like I can understand it. I can understand where people, you know what I mean? I can see both sides. You know what I mean? So I feel like he definitely is a great football player, but I do think respectfully that the 5th round was I see nothing wrong with it. I mean, I still feel like he's getting his chance to shine. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's not like he didn't get drafted. Now, if he went undrafted, now that's a different story. Now we are looking at, you know what I mean? All right, now something going on. But I feel like 5th round with looking at everything. And then at the end of the day, a lot of teams don't need quarterbacks. If we really going to be real, like if we really going to look at, you know what I mean, who needs a quarterback? A lot of teams are honestly situated and they have already been building their teams. And so, I mean, honestly, a quarterback in the 1st, 2nd round wouldn't be the smartest pick.
What you think, Miles?
Shedur Sanders, man, this is a fascinating. He's just such a fascinating character to me. His whole family is just a fascinating kind of take on like media and fame and popularity and all that stuff. But to the broader point of how do I feel about Shedur going in the 5th round, it definitely is BS for sure. Should Shedur have been the number 1 pick in the draft? No. I think Cam Moore was better than him, but I think he could have been a 1st round quarterback, early 2nd round quarterback, just off the positional value of the quarterback position. Like, I know it's like people say like everybody has a quarterback. Everybody don't have a good one. And I think, quarterback is a paramount position that we saw teams trade up and take a guy like Jackson Dart in the 1st round, who I think has shown no traits of being a true NFL quarterback besides the fact that he's tall, white, and quote unquote handsome, in my opinion. So there are people that needed a quarterback and I think could have got him. The Saints went and drafted here 6-7 year senior who's had multiple injuries, who doesn't have any elite trades. They traded up and got him around. So I think it was a bit crazy. And yeah, the slide though, once I saw that he didn't go in the 1st round, I knew it was going to be a long wait for him. First off, if you don't go round 1 or early round 2, NFL teams are drafting you to be a backup quarterback. They're not drafting you to come in and start and give you the keys to the franchise. They're asking you to come in and develop. To his detriment, he's a household name. Shedur Sanders is a well-known person. Even the average or non-average NFL fan knows who Shedur Sanders is. So it would get loud behind that starting quarterback if Shedur Sanders is sitting behind them, right? So I do think as it got further and further, teams didn't want to risk themselves that, okay, say Derek Carr, who's the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints, say he's struggling. I don't want game 3 to stand, the fans are in the crowd chanting Shedur, Shedur, Shedur. That's a distraction on your team in their eyes. So once that happened, I was like, it's going to take to a point where an owner is going to have to step in and be like, hey, select Shedur Sanders, which is what happened with the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns didn't want to take Shedur Sanders. They got a call from their ownership that was like, hey, it's time, take him. Because if you saw the reaction of the front office, they were like, you know, it is what it is, like clapping like they just got forced to do something, which I think they did. I think the owner was like, you know what, this guy's too famous for not having our building, so let's take him. I think my issue with Shedur is nothing on the field. I think there are valid field concerns that scouts raised with him. But interestingly enough, they never raised those before the draft happened. So before the draft, there's an entire media complex of mock drafts and predictions and all these things. And they talked to all these scouts. Nobody was saying Shedur was going behind the second round. And then all of a sudden, when the draft was happening and after the draft, well, you know, it makes sense that no, you weren't saying that months ago. You were not saying that. You predicted him. Some predicted him to go 3 to the Giants. Some predicted him like later in 21 to go to the Saints. Like it's the cope that they had after the fact is what bothers me, because they act like they expected this. They act like it's not a big surprise. Why are you guys so up in arms about this? No, the mock drafts that you put out every month that we went and watched and read, you told us that he was going in the first, second round. So of course people are going to be like, wait, you told me he was going here. He went 5th. What's going on? So I don't like the fact that they're after the fact acting like, oh, this is something not that crazy. And then the other thing that I think one quote really stuck out to me after the fact, when people tried to rationalize why he fell out, and they were like, anonymous, of course, exec was like, hey, he made me feel small in the room. That was a quote. He made me feel small in the room. And that's absurd to me. How are you in a you're the one making a draft pick. You're the big man in the room. So like, how does he make you feel small? You're the one that decides if you want to draft him or not. And I think that just goes back to kind of put it back and to the front of confident Black men that don't need the validation or don't need the approval of the decision makers makes people very, very uncomfortable. So I'm going to stop there, but I think that's really it. He makes them uncomfortable with how much he does not need the NFL. I'm not going to say not need the NFL, but not need the approval and them to really like him in the NFL, or so he thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that comment of he made me feel small in the room. When I was coming up, we would call that smarmy white boy. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's just smarmy white boy speak. You're making excuses. But I think we had a little technical difficulty, so hopefully Jonathan will pop back in. So I'm going to ask you, Miles, do you think that the media treats Black athletes differently than white athletes? And how noticeable is it to you and your peers?
Oh, 100% they treat Black athletes differently. They treat Black athletes differently, Black coaches, Black general managers, Black president, like any position in sports, Black and white are compared a little bit differently. I think too that the thing that's so tough about it is like it's microaggressions, because I think in 2025 they're not overtly racist anymore because of climate that we're in. I think they know that they would be called out for that. It'd be very noticeable. But I do think there are just internalized biases that a lot of these white decision makers have that they show with how they talk about the game, right? So like one of the things is like a quarterback like Jalen Hurts or a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, right? They're never applauded for their cerebral instincts. Like it's never like, oh man, I can't think of a quarterback that is like a Black quarterback where they say, oh man, he's a savant at the line of scrimmage. Like he really calls out the defenses. He knows what's going on. They love to say that with Joe Burrow, though. They love to say Joe Burrow is a savant and a gym rat and loves and knows the knowledge of the game. But I think with Black athletes, we're just athletes. Like we're just better. It's almost like they want to say we're better genetically than them. And that's why there's like it's never because of how smart they are or how much work they put in. It's all because of just their God-given abilities, which is some of it, but they also are really smart athletes. So they're definitely treated differently. And I think my generation for sure notices it But I think we're starting to care a little bit less about it. And I think Shedur is an example of that, of not really giving a damn what they think about Black athletes, because we're going to do our thing and kind of be proud of who we are. But there definitely is a difference.
Yeah. Just to add to that, Miles, those are some great points that you brought up, that if we look historically, you're right, it's more about our inherent talent versus our intellect as it relates to the game. And we know that it's more than just the talent. We know that they do have the intellect of the game, and that's why they achieve and that's why they win as well. But we're in a society that still wants to see us as different. And we are continuing to try to work through that as well. Current times making it a little harder to do so, but we're not ending the fight or giving up on that as well. But I thought that those were just some great insights that you brought up as it relates to perception of that, of our stereotypes, and underlying biases that are there as well.
So let's shift this conversation a little bit to the media framing of Black success, and how this was started in sports, but it really extends to every area. And so I'm going to ask John and Greg to talk a little bit about your specific industry, because in mine, I'm in academia, right? I'm a university dean. Historically, in academics, we tend to see Blacks in academia kind of pushed into certain areas, and historically, in a lot of university settings, right, push them over to Black studies. Right.
Mhm.
That's the thing. Let's push them all over into that area, and they can have that space, or they live in the kind of the DEI world, right? Of whatever subtopic we're talking about. They're the blackest, the black of this, or we're gonna attach Black or Black cultural studies or something to whatever that is, and that's where we're gonna put the Black people in academia. What about in your world, John? And
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that is, again, an age old. We see it, still haven't seen much progress, unfortunately. So, right, how many Black deans are deans or presidents of what would be considered the top 20 schools or universities out there? Those that were got criticized so badly that they had to step down from their position just for sanity's sake. When it comes to medicine, our struggle is still trying to get young Black men, especially Black women, outrank Black men when it comes to medicine, but we're still so small in the percentage. For our population, we are nowhere near having the amount of medical providers out there to take care of our communities that we need to, and it's dwindling. And that is something that is a struggle. It's a matter of how do we continue to encourage our young people about the importance of medicine. What we hear, of course, is going to school and all that education that they got to go through, but a lot of it is the debt. It's the debt that they have to go through at the end of that thing. And right now, we still don't have any safeguards in place to try to help reduce that. So we still stay in the minority as it relates to that. Again, how many of us will we see in the presidents of medical organizations and things of that nature? It's like you said, we may have a role in DEI efforts or running the clinics that are in the underserved areas or things of that nature there. But as we've talked in previous conversations, we have the knowledge, we have the ability, we have the experience to be able to serve in any capacity as well.
Well, one of the things I love about sports is that it really is, it's been said, like a microcosm of the broader world, and it cuts in so many different ways. Obviously, the work that I do, in some ways, it sort of dovetails your work, Jonathan, given that I represent healthcare workers. And so there is sort of a hierarchy of the roles that people have. It's expected that Black folks in particular aren't doctors, right? It's assumed that culturally, given the hierarchy of healthcare institutions, that Black workers in particular are sort of relegated to certain positions. And so there's a value then that's attached to them based upon those positions. So that's sort of the real life thing. But in sports, and again, it cuts in so many different ways. Having gone to Iowa, we saw it in the conversation debates around Caitlin Clark, right? The way in which it cuts around the woman is an incredible basketball player and has been for a long time, right? And so there's a certain amount of extra praise, I think, or privilege that she herself has sort of gotten just by virtue of being a white woman from Iowa, right? But since we're talking about football, there's another example of a guy from Iowa, right? Cooper DeJean played for the Eagles, who is sort of the first white cornerback to be successful in a long time. And so he gets elevated in a way that's interesting. I think he deserves the credit. He's an incredible athlete, has been for a long time, but there's a certain elevation that he gets or privilege that
Yeah,
he's
he
gotten.
deserves the credit of being an NFL cornerback.
Yep.
That's credit enough, right?
Yep.
Because that's a
Right.
special place to be in
Exactly.
general.
Yep.
Don't put no extra gravy on that because he's a white boy, because that's DEI in the
Exactly.
other direction. You know,
Well,
it's
and it's
annoying.
interesting to
Yeah.
hear him talk about it, right? And I saw an interview podcast with Ryan Clark, the Pivot, and they had him on, and he just interesting to hear them sort of in a reverse sort of way think about this question of stereotypes and like the media putting you in a certain box and how you might navigate that. But again, at the bottom, it just really speaks to the ways in which privilege is used to amplify certain people and the ways in which those without privilege are somehow relegated to a lower position, if you will, and not given credit for hard work, for effort. And so just an interesting moment, and the way it plays out in sports really is reflective to me of the ways in which it plays out in broader society.
Sports is supposed to be the last true meritocracy, or the only true meritocracy, right? But we keep seeing that getting damaged all the time.
I feel
Jonathan, go ahead.
Sorry.
Okay, go
Yep.
ahead, Miles. Go
No,
ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt. No, I was just gonna say, just to put a bow on the Cooper DeJean and Caitlin Clark stuff, because that stuff is fascinating to me. But I think we would all be better, and I think a society would be a lot better if they just admitted that they just like seeing people that look like them do those things. And I think that's where it's an issue. Like,
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
okay that you like Caitlin Clark, white girl in a black league getting buckets. Like, you can say that. Like,
Yeah, I would. If I
Yeah.
was white, I would want to be somebody to represent us.
I was gonna say, like, obviously society is different, and there were different barriers to why certain things exist. But like, when Tiger Woods or when anybody black is in some white predominated area, I'm rooting for him. Like Issa Rae said, I'm rooting for everybody black. And it's like, if you feel that way, they don't ever want to admit that though, and then they
Correct.
use other reasoning, and then that's what gets me upset. But like, if you want us to be like, hey, Cooper DeJean, white cornerback, it's not a lot of us. I think it's pretty cool. I'd be like, all right, cool, I get it. But they don't want to admit that. And it's like, all right, then why don't you want to admit that? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like,
What
I
you
wouldn't
think,
be mad at
Jonathan?
all at that.
What do you think, Jonathan?
I mean, I'm hearing y'all perspective. I guess I never really looked at it like that from that way. I mean, I don't really pay attention to like Caitlin Clark. I mean, honestly, from just being honest. But I mean, with the whole Cooper DeJean thing, I feel like it is. I mean, I feel like it is kind of funny that y'all wording it like that. I feel like I just thought it was funny because he was a white dude. You know what I mean? And the fact that there ain't been it really hasn't been any corner white dudes in ages, you know what I mean? And let alone one that's elite, you know what I mean? That just went to Super Bowl and got a 6 pick, you know what I mean? So it's just like, you know what I mean? Like I guess I kind of I see where you guys are coming from for sure, but I definitely see why he was put on a totem pole, because I mean, even then, I mean, the Eagles, I mean, let's look at the Eagles, what that team is. I mean, that team is black. You know what I mean? Like everybody is just black. You know what I mean? It's just super black. So it's just like, and then you got this white dude, you know what I mean, who like you said, came out of Iowa. I didn't even know he came out of Iowa. So it's just like, I could see why people are fascinated with that. You know what I mean? I could see, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily put it on a race thing, but I could definitely see, it definitely does stem from a race thing, though. I could see where you guys are getting it from. I just never looked at it like that, but it was definitely interesting to hear that, point of view. I just always assumed it was from, I mean, I just looked at it like he was a white dude, a cold white dude. I mean, but I guess it's just how I was raised. You know what I mean? Like, I just looked at it like he was a cold white dude. He's balling. You know what I mean? And he got it. He worked hard because, like I said, I know how hard it is even to just play the corner position. You know what I mean? To even be starting on the Eagles on one of the best defenses in the league. It's just, I mean, shoot, more power to him. Like, I wasn't even paying attention to the race. You know what I mean? Like,
See,
but that's just me.
You're a decent human being, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, that's not been your focus. You just actually focus. That's what sports is supposed to be.
Yeah.
If somebody's cold, then that's cool. When we were shorties coming up, basketball was my thing. So in a heartbeat, I would be out there on the court claiming bird, you know, shooting a shot.
Exactly.
Nobody thought twice about that. If somebody was cold then you liked them because they was cold. You didn't really even care about the race thing. It was just, but that's the way sports was supposed to be. And obviously, it hasn't always been that way. It's
Oh
America,
yeah,
right? We've
of
had to
course.
break into every sport that we wanted to because they tried to keep it to themselves, at least in terms
For
of
sure.
money. But I think this whole notion of being twice as good, is that something your generation even talks about? We talked about it a lot, and that was something our parents instilled into us. Did John and putting you two putting them on the spot? Did John and Greg talk to y'all about being twice as good when y'all were coming up, or was that just something because you had high achieving parents that was kind of built in? Was there actual conversations about that?
Man, I'm let Miles go.
Were there conversations about being twice as good?
Yeah.
The scandal conversation with Olivia Pope's dad had, where like, no, I'll be honest with you, I don't.
Mhm.
If there was, I don't remember them.
Mhm.
To be completely honest
Okay.
with you, I don't remember. I honestly never really associated any of my capabilities with like white people at all. As I gotten older and I think about like in grammar school, I never thought about white people. Like, you know, like I mean, like they were there. Like,
Mhm.
I was not an
Exactly.
idiot. Like I could see there were differences, but I
Right.
never was like, oh, I have to be
Mhm.
Miles. Like I have to be the best person I have to.
Mhm.
It was like,
Mhm.
I think through experience and life, you start to see
Mhm.
Mhm.
that other people are treated differently. But there was never
Right.
really a mindset where like, before you go to school, listen, you got to get straight A's, because if you don't,
Yeah.
the white person's gonna get treated different. Like, no, it's like be your best person, be your best, put your best
Yeah.
foot forward. It was all about my kind of development as a man myself, not really worrying about what other folks are kind of doing. And I
Oh.
think that was a great thing to do, but I also don't think that's too unique for my generation. And at least
Mhm.
graphic either. I think a lot of us are kind of more veered in that way of like, we know it's there, but that's not the focus that.
And I
Excellent.
totally agree.
Excellent.
I totally agree with Miles too. Like, and my pops never was I wouldn't say hard on me like in terms of like, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that, but he was definitely pushing me to be my best self. You know what I mean? I
Mhm.
always give my best. You know what I mean? If I'm gonna do it, I mean,
Mhm.
give my all. You know what I mean? Type thing. If I'm gonna do it, let's do it. Like, don't just be sitting there just BSing. So it's just like, it was never like, oh, you gotta do it. If you don't do it, your life is over with. You know what I mean? It was just more so like,
Mhm.
you just got to give your best. You know what I mean? Just because that's just life, though. With anything you do, you just want to give your best. Because, and I mean, just going through life, I always realized that, I mean, just like he said, like Miles said, through experiences, you learn, like, I mean, giving your best is just, I mean, it's just how you reflect it. So, I mean, it's just like, it's just better to give your best at everything you do, because you never know who's watching.
Mhm.
You just never know who's watching, or
Mhm.
what people are paying attention to. So it's just always good to just always do your best. That's just how I was raised. I never looked at it like, oh man, I got to be the coldest black boy out of this. Cause I did go to like prominently, I can't even say it, like prominently like white school. You know what I mean? Like predominantly white school,
Mhm.
whatever, for high school or whatever. So in a sense, it was like, I was kind of like left out. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I mean, I had my friends or whatever, but I never looked at it like a competition. Is what I'm trying to say. I just always just focused on myself.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I never looked at what the white kids are doing. It didn't really concern me.
It's funny that you say that about the school, because I was just about to bring that up. I think the schools that I went to really hammered home that idea. Like, in my grammar school was extremely multicultural. Like, I remember being in classes, and my friend group was like, it was like this Japanese girl, there was a girl from Russia, there was a French person, there was a person from Israel. And then there were like black kids, and then my teachers were black. I was fortunate enough to have a teacher that I had most of the time. Shout out to Mr. Brookins. It was like there was no really questions about my juxtaposition with me and white people. It was like, you be you, like you like be yourself, push yourself, do your best thing. But I will say that competition did form when I got to high school. For my first 2 years of high school, I went to a Catholic school in Chicago.
Mhm.
I was predominantly white, and that's where I started to see the real kind of competition. Honestly, competition between black students and white students in terms of sports,
Mhm.
education, every facet of life at that school. Yeah, it was a white Irish Catholic school, so we were kind of the outsiders in that school, and they made that very known. Like the students made that very known. The teachers, I feel like, made that very known. We were treated very differently in ways that I noticed more leaving it. But they also started to become cliques. Like black people did not really hang around other white kids after school, which was pretty crazy. And it was like at lunch tables, it would clearly be a divide. But yeah, no, growing up, I think, the schools that I went to helped reinforce me not really looking over my shoulder to expose myself.
I mean, and I just want to jump off of that. It's actually kind of funny hearing that, because like you coming from up north, and it's like me being down south. Like I honestly never really, like, of course, like there's people who have like, I mean, we're gonna have incidents where, I mean, of course you're not gonna get it wrong, like black or white, but I mean, I'm gonna say like my specific part, my city too, like we really never had that problem. Like it really was never like based off like race, like which is actually kind of funny though, hearing that from somebody who's a northerner. Like I never really had no, like my friends is white. I had Asian friends, I had black friends, I had white friends, but I will say this though, like things did change when we graduated though. You know what I mean? Like when we graduated, things definitely started, I would say, quote unquote, fell in their place. Or like kind of how like I always would like assumed it to always be like, okay, they staying in that clique, or I ain't heard from them forever. You know what I mean? That talking about my white classmates or even this and that, you know what I mean? Like, or my Mexican, you know what I mean? Type junk. It's just like they just kind of did their own thing and ended up with their people, you know what I mean? In a sense, but it's like going through a high school, it definitely wasn't something I never paid attention to, but even though it probably was going on, I'm not saying it definitely wasn't. It probably was going on, but it's definitely, it is interesting to hear that even it was happening even in the northern spots, because from my perspective, that is more of like a multicultural, like you said, is more. I'm thinking everybody get along, you know what I mean? I'm thinking like, oh, it's all love, you know what I mean? It's okay, like okay, that's interesting, you know what I mean? That's interesting.
Yeah, no,
Chicagoland's very segregated historically. Has been.
I was gonna say the same thing. Like a couple things. One, obviously I'm from Chicago, but it still feels wild to be referred to as the North. I'm not gonna lie to you. I never
Midwest. My bad.
I never
Midwest.
Really. Oh no, not like, no. I'm saying like I get what you meant, but I'm saying like I don't know. I always feel like Chicago is its own place. Like when I think of not like. I don't know. It's just I don't know. It's just
you got the North, you got the South,
world, right?
South.
It definitely is a utopia of the North for sure. It definitely is utopia of the Midwest.
Yeah, but no, I mean, like Chicago is interesting. Like Rick said, like it's the most segregated city in America, and I think it wasn't like we were like black and white folks was fighting every day. Like it wasn't like that, but like.
Yeah,
there were like, so the area is Bridgeport in Chicago, and like the Bridgeport like white guys, like they were loudly like racist. Like we would laugh about it though. Like I'm gonna be honest with you, like we weren't like man, he's being racist. Like we would be like that's how he is. Like they would say wild shit and like crazy. I'm sorry, or they would say wild.
Oh, you good?
You good?
Say wild things. But that was just like we knew that's what they were on. Like they say crazy stuff about like our hair or stuff like that. We go back at them too. Like, but like that was just how it was. And then when lunch would come, we'd be by ourselves. The basketball team would kind of separate. But it was like it wasn't content. Like we knew it was there, but it wasn't like, oh man, I wish we could all just get along. But like we were all just fine with it. Like so. But yeah, it was an interesting time looking back on it for sure.
And even to piggyback on that, because I know. I do it. We might as well dive into it. So I mean, like just hearing what you saying, like I feel like, and even with the whole media thing, do you feel like it is like? Because I'm gonna just be real, like coming from a kid from North Carolina, hearing about the stuff that goes on in Chicago. So like I can kind of see, not saying this right, but just playing devil's advocate for these white kids or whatever. It's like I'm hearing like, oh, you. Homeboy, Lil Ray killed Lil Tutu, whatever, you know what I mean? For whatever, like, click he claiming, you know what I mean? Like, and this is going on every day, but it's like it's like 10 times, like, you know what I mean? Like, exaggerate or whatever to a whole nother extent in the Chicago, you know what I mean? So I'm not saying it's right that they coming at y'all saying, like, racist, whatever. I'm not saying it's right, but I could definitely see how the media is even portraying, like, black kids out of those areas as even, like, these kind of people, like, oh, like, don't mess with him, don't talk to him, he gonna hurt you, or you can't trust him, he'll rob you. So it's like that's already they coming in and thinking that's who you are, even though they don't even know you. Like you said, like they hadn't even talked to you, they haven't even got to know you. But it's like that's the whole media playing that role. That's the whole media just, and like if they really did maybe talk to you, they really They realize, oh, we got a lot of similarities. Oh, I like this, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I listen to this, but it's like they too stuck on the media who image they want you to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's what he is. I know he's that. He acting like this, but I know he's that. You know what I mean? That's
Mm-hmm.
just that's
Isn't
what
that
they
what we said
believe.
a couple weeks ago? That
Yeah.
if you say you're from Chicago, well, let's take a step back.
Right.
Around the
Sure.
world, right? You say you're from
For
Chicago,
sure.
they say yeah. They take a little
Yeah.
step back.
Right.
Exactly.
And the crazy
Exactly.
part about it too, I'm glad you kind of brought that up, is because my high school experience was a very, very pivotal time in Chicago, because that was when Chief Keef and Lil Durk and G Herc, that was like childhood, like when Chicago was putting on the map as quote unquote Chirac and drilling on, like that was the music we were listening to in grammar school and high
Right.
school. So that definitely formed the whole Chicago in terms of like what everybody was doing, what everybody was listening to and feeling. I think though the issue that I had with it, and the issue that I think people noticed back then, was not them like it was more authority's reaction to both of us, which I think was the issue. Like, I think between us, like of course there was fractions in it, but like we would do very similar things. We would be dumb high school kids. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we would be dumb high school. Like it was an all boys Catholic school. We was all in there smelling like, terrible, like not showering, going crazy, like doing like, kid stuff. But the reactions to them were very, very different. And then that, I think, the thing that regardless of any kind of external media that they consuming, that they had a direct decision to do. And I think for me, I actually kind of got separated a lot from a lot of the black kids at De La Salle, was the school I went to, because I was in the honors classes there as well, and there was 2 or 3 black kids in the honors class, and everybody else was either Mexican, white, or Asian. And then that I felt real isolated there. That was I got crazy stories if you want to hear them about that. But like, yeah, no, I think it was more so the upper like teachers and their response to us that was really the thing that was detrimental. Because as kids, we'll figure it out. Like at the end of the day, we were separate, but like we would interact. It wasn't like we were like, don't talk to him like it was like the 1960s or something like that. We would interact, but administration would treat us both very, very differently.
And that's so funny that you said. I guess I just really wasn't paying attention. I guess I was just all up in my own world. But it's funny though, like when I do look back, because it's like I did get in trouble for like, it was a moment, I did have a moment with one of my teachers in high school where she literally took me out to class for something that really wasn't even, it was never serious. Like I had the whole class laughing. I can't even remember what happened. I just remember she said something and I just made a comment back. It wasn't even nothing disrespectful. It was just the fact that I made the class laugh or something. You know what I mean? Like, oh, he funny guy. You know what I mean? Like, so she just had to make an example out of me. And the whole time, like I was just standing up for myself, if anything. You know what I mean? Just like, okay, lady, you're not finna just talk to me like, because at the end of the day, I am still a young black male, like, and it was an older white lady. So it was just like, I just felt like that inferiority, that was just like, I felt that smug, so I just felt compelled to just say something back. Even though, you know what I mean, looking back on it, maybe I should have been the better, you know what I mean, the bigger person, let it go. But even
you
then,
did
as an
what you should
adult,
have done.
exactly, as an adult, she should have just let it go as well. You know what I mean? But she made a big deal out of it, and I didn't get in trouble for it. You know what I mean? Like I said to my parents, they obviously thought it was stupid. It was something that it shouldn't have never got took into where it got took to. You know what I mean? So it's like it's funny that you say that. It's like, yeah, it definitely was in a sense a double standard. You know what I mean? Like, I just never paid attention to it. You know what I mean? But now that you do say it, like, yeah, that is weird that I did get put in that position for something that small.
No, like,
and that happens all the time. That happens all the time throughout all across the nation in all of our public education systems. You see black boys getting put in their place by some authority figure that doesn't think that they should be allowed to grow or they should be allowed to express themselves the same way that they're allowing these white boys to do it.
Would just add the caveat: the school Miles was talking about was not a public one. So
no,
it's
not just public. You're right.
It's an endemic. It's bigger than that. And I think
right.
You're right. And just a couple things about that real quick, like just a tangible thing that you all can do. So at this Catholic school, as I said, some of the white students would have like hair. Like they would grow their hair out, you know,
Mm-hmm.
very long, right? And that's fine, like whatever. To be between you and I, wouldn't look the best and wouldn't smell the best, right? It was not the most upkept, right? But
Right.
for black students, there was a rule that we could not have afros. Their afros were banned. That rule has since changed, I believe.
That's crazy.
But there was a certain length you had to have your hair. And I remember vividly having a conversation with my dean, and I was like, yo, like, why can't he have his hair is longer than mine? Like his hair is at his shoulder. Why do I have to cut my hair? They're like, because it's unkept. This is my natural hair pattern, right? Like it grows how it grows. And trust me, I wash my hair to have have the curls that I'm having, right? I put product in my hair. It's clean. But that was not acceptable for them. That was something that they were like, no, your hair is unkept, because they didn't understand us. But like, just to put a bow on it, man, like I really do hope that I feel bad for like a lot of black men or black boys in the classroom, man, because I feel like people don't, when we say we getting picked on, I feel like a lot of people don't believe it. Like they're like, oh man, you need to act better. Like even John, you almost said like maybe I could act. Like, nah, forget that. Like you're a child. Like these are children speaking. These aren't adults. Like they're not perfect people. But I do think that there's a certain aura that black men have teachers can't deal with when it's kind of out of whack. So they're like, oh, we got to put like, if you say something, oh, we got to halt this right now. Or if you're getting too much attention in the class, like, oh, he's taking over the classroom. And it's like, no, I'm just being myself. And that scares me.
Exactly.
So I feel bad, because I think there's a lot of similar stories with black boys going through stuff like that.
Nah, it's a matter of control, is what it is, fellas. It's it's not a misunderstanding at all. It's a matter of control, and that's their way of still trying to have control over situations. And to bring it back just a little bit to our sports theme, that's where a lot of this conversation was coming from. Was okay, you have this young black male who's confident in his abilities and felt like he should be in a certain position or status as it relates to the pro league, which we all know. And I think, all of us have had conversations before about the pros are the pros, and usually the elite of everything that came before the pros is who's in the pros. So even though we might call somebody a scrub in the pros, I guarantee you that scrub was one of the elite, playing college or something. You see what I'm saying? So, but it's all in this perspective. And the conversation about the owners saying, and Shedur specifically, his arrogance and him saying where he was going to play, didn't want to play, his dad's influence on what that sounded like as well. So again, the owners, you're not going to see many of us in that position. So they like, well, we gotta, we still own this thing. And I don't like how he's presenting himself. Now, once they get in the league and become who they become, ain't much they can do at that point. But at the point of you trying to come in, the other aspect I think that got them was that Shedur, he didn't need to be in the league for their money.
Correct.
You see what I'm saying? He didn't need anything from them except the opportunity to play.
Right.
And that got them, that gets them off edge. Like, wait a minute, you supposed to come humble to me. I'm about to give you some millions up in here. And he already had millions. I mean, he's already got millions of things too. So
Well, it's a fascinating point, because I do think the quiet part about all of this, or the elephant in the corner, as I've been known to say, is the way in which class plays out, right? And I think the conversation that we're having, our young men are middle class, upper middle class kids, grew up that way, right? But I think can't help but think about LeBron James in the context of this conversation. There's the whole industry of hate around LeBron James that is really about him being arrogant and cocky. I mean, you can critique his basketball and all of the ability and whether he's a winner, if he's the GOAT and all this stuff. But this young man has been called the king since he was like 12 or 13 years old. Grew up in a single parent household, but never got in any trouble. But there's this whole narrative about him that a person not as strong of character and will would have really wilted under the pressure of. And so while he deserves some critique, the flopping and the whining, yeah, sure. But what he's been able to
Wait till
accomplish,
people come to your job every day and start critiquing you.
yeah.
Right.
But
Because,
it
I
all
mean,
is about, it's less about his ability. The critique of him is more about the arrogance and the nerve and just that to have the strength of character to withstand all of that. I think it's something that should be studied.
Yeah, and the Shedur thing is so crazy because Black nepotism is probably like the most frowned upon thing on both sides. I think from
yes,
both sides and
yes.
from the inside, I think Black nepotism is something that makes people very, very uncomfortable. And I think Shedur is a signal of that. Because if you compare Shedur Sanders to Archie Manning, who is the quarterback at the University of Texas, now he is the son of Arch Manning. His uncles, if you all cannot already tell by the last name, are Eli and Peyton.
Yeah.
That was part of our conversation last
Yep.
week as well.
I
We
was gonna
got
say,
way
see now,
into the
I
names.
was gonna say when you compare it to that now I can see where y'all are definitely coming from because he
Okay.
gonna mess around and go first and second and second round. And now that's what's going because right now I feel like you can't compare it because there is nothing to compare it to yet.
Right.
But when that Nepo baby when he comes and he ain't really did nothing yet, and he gonna end up
He
going
the third
first and second round.
generation
Now
Nepo
we
baby, though.
having
He the third. He the third
facts, you know what I
generation
mean?
Nepo
Right.
baby
This is
because Peyton and Eli were Nepo
right.
babies.
Yeah. So here's the thing that's so
Exactly.
crazy about that and why I brought it up is because not even just on the draft positioning, because for one, Archie Manning has not completed a full season as a Texas starting quarterback. He's already, if you go right now, a projected top 3 pick in the next year's draft.
Exactly.
Another thing about that's so crazy could just be me and how I view things, but I feel like people assume that Shedur Sanders is this rich boy, but I don't get those same thoughts about Archie Manning when his uncles own Omaha Productions. They've been in NFL forever. Peyton and Eli are on every commercial. I don't hear people say that he's the rich boy. Shedur seems much richer than Archie when that ain't the case. And then the other thing that I want to point out is that,
But you know that prime time, flashy.
I was gonna say though, but yeah, but they could make
hey,
that.
so listen, that I will say that is part of it. Prime is a very flashy guy, but to that same point, Archie Manning's.
How do you guys feel about being allowed the freedom to express yourselves? You know, I was in the gym the other day, I'm working out, and then this young brother walks by and he's got his hair is, I don't even know what you call it or how you describe it. It's like if Greg's hair was on steroids right now, just went in every direction and did that kind of thing. And the stuff that you young cats get to do. And I was just saying to him, I was like, man, if I still had hair, I would do something like that. Because when we were coming up, I don't think we felt the high top fade was really one of our ways to express ourselves. We level of, you know, especially if you were trying to go to college or you wanted to get a job, there was more of this pressure to conform and look more like what society thought was acceptable. But I see young brothers now doing all kinds of stuff that I'm like, man, I wish I would have. If I still had hair, I would do something like that. But I'm 50 something years old now. It's not the same. What do you guys, how do you guys feel about how you're being labeled? How does it feel? Do you feel like society still wants to hold you back like that? Do you guys feel like you have more freedom to do and be yourself, whoever that is?
I'm gonna say this. I feel like it goes both ways. I feel like society, in a sense, they do like our style. They want us to be us. You know what I mean? Trust me, they want us to be the flashiest because we are the trendsetters. Black male, young black men, even black women. They're the trendsetters for a lot of these kids, these teenagers nowadays. But at the end of the day, at the same time, the white people hate it though. Or I wouldn't even say the whites, or just like the other. Even a lot of races hate it though. Like I feel like it's more so. I don't know if it's a insecurity thing. Like they don't feel like they have that same swagger. They have that same effect on the masses that maybe like you'll see with hip hop. You know what I mean? Nowadays, like hip hop is touching all over. You know what I mean? Like you see with Sexy Red and stuff like that. She was with Donald Trump had her. You know what I mean? At one of his rallies. You know what I mean? It's just hip hop is just so. It's so transcendent. It's like I feel like people just hate on it. You know what I mean? For whatever reason, or just the black culture is just so. it's just so cool. It's a vibe. It's something natural. You know what I mean? It was never. We didn't have to take it. We didn't have to steal lands. You know what I mean? They brought us over here, and we still were able to find a culture. You know what I mean? Be ourselves. You know what I mean? And establish ourselves as one. So it's just, I just feel like people are just hate on blacks. You know what I mean? Or just have some type of innuendo with blacks for whatever reason. And it's just like, I've never, like, you know what I mean? I didn't grow up with that hate, but for some reason, for whatever reason, people just grow up just feeling like they can't do what we can do in certain aspects.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I definitely think that the individual is highly, highly pushed nowadays. I think the idea is to be an individual now and be your own person and have that confidence to do your own thing. I do think is a lot in black men, but I honestly just think that's a societal thing now in my generation in general. I think we don't really have too many. We're a very arrogant generation, which is has its negatives, right? But I think one of the positives is that we feel as though that, we know what's best for our lives. And I think that goes into the way that we decide to present ourselves, right? So like I think that we don't really care what anybody has to say about what kind of hair we have. Like I think the rise in tattoos and like formal places is right. Like no one, like I'm gonna tat up my whole body if you want to. Like people don't really care about that. I'm gonna wear what I want to wear. I'm going to do my hair how I want to do my hair. And I think it's because, like, we feel as though, like, it's our lives to decide on, right? Like, I don't think going back to, like, the conversation that you had earlier, do we have a conversation of do we have to be 2 times better or 10 times better than white folk? We didn't have those conversations. The conversations, like we said, were about the individual. How can I be my best version of myself? And that allows yourself to organically find yourself and not be like, okay, what are they doing over there that is acceptable? Let me do that too. You think like, what do I like to do? I like my hair like this. I like to wear this. I like to do all these different things. So it's like we organically finding these things. And the internet, I think too, has been a rise in it. Like as much as I say you be an individual, the internet shows that there's a lot of people out there just like you, right? So like I think when you do things and you might not see people in your community doing them as well, you have a community online that makes you feel like you're not like doing something that's completely wicked and everyone's judging you, right? So I think that level of community they get online allows them to be themselves in person as well, which has its positives and its negatives, but I think that gives people the courage to kind of be wacky. Because however you have your hair, you can go on Google and find somebody that probably has it. So I think there's a lot of benefits.
Well, as Rick is trying to become Cornell West out there, I think that you brought up some great points. Cornell got that hair going on and that intellect to back him up type deal. So I think that's how Rick would be looking if I'm seeing him with all that hair that he talking about.
Man,
I want to say that you guys are touching on some great things, and there's so many layers to what this conversation is leading into, and it's about how is the black male perceived. And I agree with you both when you said how social media, the internet, and all of that has become an influence on what that looks like now. I'm concerned that as politics is becoming more and more involved in our life now, how is that going to look going forward? You see what I mean? I think we were able to get to a point where you're right, Miles. Tattoos, the hair, whatever. We like, hey, we know that there's more to a person than how they present themselves on the outside. So we're willing to go ahead and look at that and bring that into our companies and organizations. But now we have this wave getting ready to come through here that's kind of not quite looking at that as much. And how is that going to affect our youth as they're trying to still find out who they are individual wise as well? So to be confident black male, you've got to be able to navigate. You've got to be able to understand the environment that you're in. It doesn't mean that you can't be who you are, but you have to also see what's going on around you, or else you're going to get lost in the who you are and miss out on what's happening as things are growing ahead of you as well. Now, we're also in an age where entrepreneurship is so wide now. Not everybody has to join a company to be successful. They're doing their own thing. They're their own boss. They're their own this, which is great. But again, just how is that going to look 10 years from now?
Mhm.
And that's just given the nature of the society that we're starting to see as well. So just bringing up some highlights as it relates to that. That's all.
I mean, I mean, and even in a sense, like you guys said, growing up, it sounds like you guys were saying like you weren't able to, I guess, express yourselves. Is that what you're kind of saying?
We were. I mean, that's where the start of hip hop, house music for us in Chicago, rap at the time kind of evolved from our generation. So we kind of, I would say, started to have that influence. But we also had the idea that we couldn't just show up at the job any kind of way, so to speak, without some potential repercussions coming from that. And that's where that would be my view on that. Now, Rick and Greg, y'all might have a
Yeah.
different outlook on that, but yeah.
I would say each generation is a little more free. I would say that we have more freedoms than our parents did, and you guys definitely have more freedoms to in terms of the ability to express ourselves, to be that individual, to let the world see who we are more so. I think each generation it gets a little better in that respect. I think a large part of that, to Miles's point earlier about the internet, the pervasiveness of social media and the internet forces it. Right. It's because of the fact that everybody gets to see what everybody else is doing in all corners of the world. It also makes it a little harder for people to lie as much about certain things, though they're trying really hard despite all of that. So I'd say you guys, there's more freedom to express oneself, but it's definitely, I think, getting better over time just because I get to see how you all are living. And to me, I see the way you live, and it gives me hope that things are improving. And then to hear you all today gives me a lot more hope because of the difference in perspective, because you guys are looking at the world differently than we do, and those different experiences. As jacked up as the world looks on the surface, hearing you cats speak today just makes me feel, for one, I feel I'm really proud of my brothers, John and Greg, because we haven't had a conversation in a while. I'm speaking to John and Miles, and the last conversations we had were not nearly as deep as this. And so I'm very proud of my brothers because I feel like they've done a great job with you two and helping you two become the men that you are. So just very, very proud to be a part of that. So now I'm gonna, as we kind of
if I
wrap.
could
Go
add,
ahead, son. Go ahead.
if I could add, really, I can speak for me and my like can't overstate the importance of Miles's mom and influencing him to be who he is today. And I
No
am
doubt, no
grateful
doubt.
for the role that she had in like listening to we would just be amazed like this kid where did he come up with this stuff at? And it's just the influence of like a bunch of people, right? And us
Hmm.
exposing him to things and us being open to things. And so I guess the last thing I'll say on kind of this part is there is absolutely progress and seeing them being able to be confident and express themselves. The world is also shaping around them too.
Hmm.
And I think that whenever there's progress, there's always a bit of a backlash. And I think part of what we're experiencing now is a bit of that backlash. That's what the Shedur Sanders part, like all of that, is
Yeah.
about. It's like a backlash to progress. But progress is here and it's happening. And you can hate on it or like it or not. It's just a reality. And I think these young men represent the essence of what progress means.
And I echo that
No.
too, Greg. I mean, just to acknowledge their moms in this, yeah, they are huge influences on these young men as well, and helped us to probably be more open to some of the things that they did. Just to be real with y'all, I mean, we may see you guys as young us, but I think moms is what helped to help us understand that no, you're you, and that's where we have to just continue to understand that, and so proud of you both and things as well. You guys are just so amazing, and it makes us so proud of all the accomplishments that you both are doing on your own. And I just want to acknowledge that as well. I think one of the questions we had before wrapping that up was, though, you're our younger generation, but what are some thoughts that you might have quickly for some of the folks that might be younger than you? So 10 years, let's say, younger than you guys. What would be some advice or some knowledge that you might want to give them?
So that's what, like 16, 17-year-olds, something like that? Yeah, today's 17-year-olds, what would you tell them?
Oof, this is a tough question.
Specifically about navigating race, opportunity, and keeping your sanity through all of that.
Ooh, so in terms of keeping your sanity, it's the most cliche thing ever, but be yourself. Like, I know that's very cliche and then everybody tells you to it, but literally be yourself. Like, you don't feel the need to code switch, don't feel the need to think about other people's ideas of who you are and what you think they think you should be. Be yourself, unapologetically yourself, because as I've gotten older and I've started to navigate spaces with multicultural people, starting to have quote unquote big boy jobs or talking to people that are not like me and different from me, the best I've ever felt is when I'm myself. And they love you. Whoever you are, whatever the best qualities of you are, I'm telling you that they will love that. Like, right. Like the most times where people have kind of wanted to be around me or I've advanced in my life so far is when I've just been myself, easygoing, laid back. And I think that's important where you asked about keeping your sanity. That's how you keep your sanity. You go crazy when you try and put on different masks every single day. You lose track of them. That's how you kind of turn crazy, right? You kind of like, who am I today? Who am I tomorrow? Who am I in March? So if you're yourself every single day, you can it takes a couple of exterior factors away to kind of just focus in on your own thing. So yeah, be yourself, man. And people love it. I'm telling you, people love an unapologetic black man. It might make them uncomfortable. It might make them feel some kind of way, but you'll be you, and they'll come to enjoy it. I promise you.
Yeah, and I'm gonna piggyback off of the be yourself for sure. And then I would also like to say, if I'm giving advice to 17-year-olds, 16-year-old, I would say, man, just do things with intent. You know what I mean? And also do stuff like out of the kindness of your heart. You know what I mean? Don't just do stuff just because it's the next man doing it. You know what I mean? Or just because it's cool to do. Do it because you actually really want to do it. Because your future self will thank you for it. You know what I mean? Especially when you put all that time in and work in on something that you really want to do. You know what I mean? I just feel like you got to do stuff with intention in life and now in all aspects. You know what I mean? In all aspects. You got to do everything with intention and make sure you got a plan, because with the plan you can go far. That's all I can say. With the plan you can definitely go far. So that's all I would say is just do stuff with intention and do it with the kindness of your heart. Do stuff with the kindness of your heart for sure.
Well, with that, you all I've learned a lot. This was a great conversation. I think we should try to do this again at least once, maybe more. It just feels like I've learned a lot just listening to you all, and again, the pride that I have in hearing you all and your ability to express yourselves truly remarkable. And I guess I come away with this saying, there really, even in a moment in time in our country and world where there seems to be so much crisis, there has been progress, right? Like I believe this conversation realizing that things are getting better. Challenges remain, but we've made progress from the days of 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. And we have to grab onto that progress and continue to move the ball forward. And then I guess the last thing I'll say is just that self-awareness part is something that I am like floored by, because I think to say like move with intention in your 20s is like, wow. That one way I was thinking, I'm just moving, right? To win. Like I had a concept of myself, but that intentionality is not something that I had very much, and certainly not in my 20s. And so continue to embrace that and really understand the importance of community and resilience. And there's a lot of people that are proud of y'all and love you very much.
Totally agree. You guys were amazing. To our listening audience, hopefully you have just had some uplift through the conversation today and just hearing from our young men. They are our future. These are the future leaders and movers and shakers that are going to do some things in this world. And as Greg said, at Rich as well, we are just so proud of you. We love you. You continue to amaze us, which is outstanding. Always know that no matter what, you always have us there. So you may grow, you may climb, you may have us there to help you along the way. You may fall, and even then, you're gonna still have us there to help catch you. So we're not gonna do it for you. I think you two know that, but we're there, and we're there to make sure that you guys make it. All right. So this was just a great time. This is raw and refined from a more seasoned generation and a generation that's on the come up as well. So again, we want to thank you, appreciate you, and Rick. Anything else?
Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you again real soon. Take care, everybody.
Peace.
Peace. Appreciate you.